So let's take a look at simple present tense. Now, I've explained this to you before, I guess. If I haven't, we'll go over it again. So, verbs have forms called tenses, that much everybody knows, that tell you when the action happens, which is also what we know. Like, tenses tell you when something is happening, whether it be right now, whether it be in the future, or whether it be in the past. All right. If the action happens regularly, sometimes or never, use the simple present tense. So these are examples, like the words that are highlighted that are in bold right now on your screens are the verbs right now, and these are in their simple present forms, right? Simple present tense forms of those verbs. Now these verbs can change, like for example, wash can become washing, which becomes the present continuous tense, which I will talk about later in the video. But for right now, we are just focusing on the simple present tense form of the verb. All right. So if an action is happening regularly, sometimes or never, use the simple present tense. So we always wash our hands. Now this action is happening always. Joe sometimes lends me his bikes. When does he lends me his bike? When does he lend you his bike? Sometimes. So this action is happening sometimes. So you are using the simple present tense. Dad jogs in the park every day. When does he jog? Every day. So he's jogging regularly. That's why you're using this form, and so on and so forth for the rest of these examples. All right. So go through them. Like I said, try to play around with the examples in your head. Try to make different sentences. Try to make questions to these sentences that are given to you. All right. Simple present tense is also used to state facts. Now, any fact was the definition of a fact. A fact is a piece of information that can be verified by evidence or is backed by evidence. All right. So any statement that is backed by like actual fact or by the word using fact, I'm using the definition of the word fact, which I just explained to you. So, for example, the sun rises every morning. Now, this is a verifiable fact because you can automatically observe the sun rising every morning, right? You can wake up in the morning, you can see the sun rise, and you can see it set. It's verified by evidence, hence it's a fact. All right. So the next one is penguins live in the Antarctica. Now, this is a typographical error as well. We do not say the Antarctica, we say Antarctica because it's a country. Now, ignore this, and like I said, be very careful of typographical errors because a lot of print material has typographical errors, no matter how well it's fact checked. And a lot of these things, that all of resources that we use that are available online do not have like dedicated proofreaders. So be careful, be keep an eye out for typographical errors. This is also good practice. Like here it's an article, and but we're not using the because it's a specific place name, right? It's a noun. Antarctica is a proper noun, so we, like I said, we never say the China, so we'll always say China. So here also we'll always say Antarctica. All right, and remember there's a C there, so you'll pronounce it Antarctica. It's not Antarctica. Don't say Antarctica. That sounds wrong. Antarctica is actually the correct pronunciation. A little less emphasis on the C might be, but anyways, like that, you have to like kind of pronounce the C. So dogs love playing in the water. The earth goes around the sun now, and the dogs love playing in the water is going to be a correct sentence there. The earth goes around the sun. Australia is an island. And the last one, Australia is an island, is an interesting one because recently I learned the largest island technically is Greenland, not Australia. Australia is not considered an island when you say what's the largest island. So if somebody asks you what's the largest island, if you say Greenland, just know you're correct. I also didn't know. I was arguing with my friend that Australia is an island, but apparently I was wrong. So don't make the same mistake as I did. Greenland is the largest island. All right. So the simple present tense you can also use to tell the events of a story that is happening right now. So for example, I arrive at school, I see another girl crying, I ask her why she is sad, she says she hasn't got any friends to play with, I tell her that she can play with me. All right. Now, usually this kind of writing you'll see in scenes in the movie, like, you know, whenever somebody's saying, whenever there's an interrogation scene and the cops will say, what were you doing on 10 p.m. of this, right? They'll say, I was at home. I arrived at school. I arrived at school. I see another girl crying. I ask her why she's sad. She says she hasn't got any friends to play with. I tell her that she can play with me. So you can just like, you know, tell a story that is happening in the present. Now you can tell the story to somebody, you know, like, oh, you know, what happened the other day? What happened? I arrive at school, I see another girl crying, I ask her why she's sad. Now, this story, like, even though you're telling it in the future, but the story is taking place in the present according to the timeline. This is what I mean by like English being a very confusing language because, like, this entire thing can be an answer to a question in the future. All right, it can't be a question, it can be a, like, you know, somebody can be talking to you and say, oh, what happened this morning? And then you say, I arrive at school, I see another girl crying. But this won't be accepted in formal English. Like if you write an answer like this for a question that has a different tense, you might get like 0 marks on it. So be careful about it whenever you're using it. All right. So just always use this whenever a story is happening right now. All right. Whenever you're going for a specific voice, whenever you're trying to tell a story that is happening right now, only and only then use this form of writing. Usually, otherwise, we use like the third person voice, or this happened, or we tell a story that is either happening or a story that has happened. All right. We don't usually try to tell a story that is happening at the moment. But when we do, this is the way it's written in. All right. So now the next one, it might look a little bit confusing to you at first, and it might seem a bit contradictory, but bear with me. All right. So use the simple present tense to talk about things that will happen in the future. Now, how do you use the simple present tense to talk about things in the future? Like, isn't it contradictory to the word itself? Simple present. Present means things that are happening in now. So how can you use it? It's very simple. All right. So when somebody asks you a question, when does your little sister start school? Or you can say, whenever you're having a conversation with somebody right now. So for example, if I'm at work, or if my, like for the first example, let's just say my little sister is going to start school tomorrow, and I'm going to have a conversation right now with somebody. And like if I was just to have a conversation with you right now and say, my little sister starts school tomorrow, and I'm really worried right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how she's going to deal with it, and I'm really worried. Now this conversation is happening in the moment, right? All the emotion that I said, like the entire sentence, my little sister starts school tomorrow, and I am really worried. Do you see that? So I'm talking about something in the about something that is happening in the future in the present. So that's why I'm using the simple present tense. So for example, the new supermarket opens this Friday. All right. So now this sentence, like for right now, like it might seem a little bit odd to you, but once you put it together with something else, or once you add more information onto it, the new supermarket opens this Friday. Do you want to go shopping right now, or do you want to go shopping later? You can add like different questions. You can add different information for it to make sense, but grammatically, like this is correct. Because like when I first saw this, when I was like preparing this lesson, this was like, I was like, wait, is this correct or is this wrong? And then I had to look it up. So this is actually correct, because you just have to think about it a little bit, because this hasn't been explained to you properly in the example I'm using. I'm sorry, I should be using better examples, but this is like the cleanest print I've gotten, like without any watermarks, because like this is free. And if I use copyrighted material on YouTube while teaching, even though I'm teaching, my channel will get a copyright strike and my videos will be taken down. So I do not want that. That's why I'm using this copy. Anyways, the rule is still the same. Use the simple present tense to talk about things that will happen in the future. My little sister starts school tomorrow. The new supermarket opens this Friday. Next week, I go on holiday to Japan. We fly to London on Sunday. The train leaves in 5 minutes. My family moves to a new house next month. All right. All of these sentences will make sense. Just you just have to wrap your head around it. And if you can't, make a note of it, bring it up during the class, and I'll go over it again with you guys. All right. So the next thing we'll be taking a look at is am, is, and are. The words am, is, and are the simple present forms of the word be. Use am with the single pronoun I. Use is with the singular nouns like my dad and the teacher, and with the pronouns he, she, and it. Use are with plural nouns like my parents and Jenny and Mary, and with the pronouns we, you, and they. Now, these are the rules. I understand rules are complicated, but we'll take a look at the examples. Please do not lose patience. I know this is confusing. I know this might be boring, but you need to pay attention right now, because this pays off later, all right? I am 12. The children are asleep. I am in the garden. Computers are very expensive. My mom is very tired today. My brother and I are upstairs. Now, here, look at that. So, this sentence is grammatically correct. Why? Because my brother is upstairs and I am upstairs are both correct, right? But if I would have turned it around, I and my brother, or instead of that, I would have said me and my brother. Now, me is upstairs or me are upstairs can't be correct, right? Okay, so that's the reason why you always say my brother and I are upstairs. Okay, my mother and I went to the market. You don't say me and my mother went to the market. You always say my mother and I went to the market, my brother and I went to some place, my father and I. All right, whenever you're using I, you have to say like my always comes before I. All right, just remember that rule, my always before I, whenever you're using it right here. The teacher is tall. We are in our bedrooms, although I am not tall. I'm average height. The teacher is tall. We are in our bedroom. She is also pretty. You are my best friend. Our dog is black. You and David are my best friends. All right. Here is a table to help you remember how to use is, am, and are. First person, I am. First person plural, we are. All right. So these are the singular and the plural forms in the first person, the second person, and the third person. So I'll go through this table with you. Just remember, like I've told you guys, you have to memorize these things. And by memorize, I mean practice them over and over again. Make sentences with them. Try to use all of them in a sentence whenever you're practicing, whenever you're trying to memorize or whenever you're trying to remember. Try to make as many sentences as possible. Try to use them in as many scenarios as you can. That improves your vocabulary. So, first person, singular, I am, plural, we are. Second person, you are, plural, as you are. Third person, he is, they are. She is, they are. It is, they are. All right. Now, there are ways of saying and writing am, is, and are with pronouns. These short forms are called contractions, which is what I was talking about the other day. All right. So I am becomes I apostrophe am, I am. You are, your. All right. He is, he's. She is, she's. It is, it's. We are, we're. They are, there. All right. I am not, I am not, I'm not. He is not, he isn't. She is not, she isn't. It is not, it isn't. We are not, we aren't. You are not, you aren't. They are not, they aren't. All right. So these are the contractions I was talking about. Pay a little bit of attention to this as well. And then there is, I think, another section, and then there are exercises. So just focus on this, make notes if you don't understand anything, and I'll explain this to you again. Okay, so the final form before we move on to the exercises is there is and there are. So use there with is and are to say what exists or what you can have. So for example, there is a tree in our garden. Now here in this sentence, there is a tree in our garden. I'm telling you something that is right there. That is something that I am in possession of, and that is something that I'm presently talking to you about. That's why I'm using the present tense is or are, as in are present tense, right? So there is or there are. So use there with is and are to say what exists or what you can have. Use there is with singular nouns and there are with plural nouns. All right, so there is a tree in a garden, single tree. There is a girl called Farah in my class, is a single girl. There is fish for dinner. There is nothing to do when it rains. There is a cat sitting on the bench. Now here you see we are using contractions now. So the contraction for there is there's, there apostrophe s. All right. So instead of writing there is a cat sitting on the bench, I'll say there's a cat sitting on the bench. Okay, so you have to pronounce your contractions as well. And that's very good practice. And that helps clear your pronunciation up and helps you get rid of that Indianness that we have in our accent. I mean, you can't automatically get rid of all of it. And even I haven't gotten rid completely of it. And I don't want to be honest, because it makes my accent sound unique. It's because like it sounds distinctly Indian, even among foreign people. So that's the reason why my accent sounds the way it does. But whenever you use a contraction, it always helps you clear up your language, you know. So if somebody is saying there's a cat sitting on the bench, you can automatically hear the contraction. Like I'm saying there's a cat on the bench. But if somebody comes up to me and say there is a cat on the bench, that automatically shows me that yeah, that person might not have that good of a grasp on the English language. All right. So that's the reason why we practice our contractions. There's a boy in my class who can walk on his hands. There are cows in the field. Now we're switching over to the plural side. There are some very big ships in the harbor today. All right. So now the next exercise, I know I usually don't talk you through exercises, but now because we're doing tenses, I'll do it for this one. Look at the pairs of subjects and verbs below. Remember that subject, verb, object. These are the sentence structures, things that we talked about in the previous lecture. Look at the pairs of subjects and verbs below, then write a sentence using each subject with the simple present or form of the verb. Now, we've done this exercise in class before, just in the form of fill in the blanks and other things, so I don't think this should be much of an issue for you guys. So the example is Dad go, and you'll have to make the sentence Dad goes to work on his bike. Now, you can also be creative as long as you're grammatically correct. So remember that you can also use the simple present tense to talk about the future as long as that conversation is happening in the present. All right. So make sure the tenses are in agreement there. So just attempt this, and there's a few more exercises after this, and then we'll be moving on to present progressive. I think. I don't know. Just do the exercises. I'll see you in a bit. So the next form we move on to is the present progressive tense. Now the definition is the present progressive tense is used to talk about things that are continuing to happen. All right, or things that are ongoing or things that are currently happening. All right, so anything that is currently happening or continuing to happen or is going to happen throughout this conversation, or or beyond this conversation, is in the present progressive tense. It's still in the present, but it is like progressive means like something that is going to move forward, right? So it means like that thing is going to start here, or it is going to happen, or is it continued happening through now and it'll continue happening through the future. All right, try to visualize these things. All right, try to imagine, like, the best way to do it is take your notebook right now, rough notebook, draw a straight line on it, write P in the middle, PR present, write P at the end, that's the past, and write F in the end of the line, and that's the future, right? So that's basically your timeline. So whenever I'm saying like something is happening from the past and continuing on through the present into the future, just draw a straight line. So that tells you the direction, like the time will be traveling in through that sentence, right? So whenever you're writing, and this is like something which writers do as well, we have to make timelines. Whenever you're writing a novel or something that is like taking place over a long period of time, you have to plot out everything methodically. All right, this scene takes place right now. Does the repercussions from this scene continue on later, and how do they meld into the story later on? So like creating a timeline is a very essential skill, I would say, if you're writing for a living. If you're not writing for a living, even then it's a good thing, because like whenever you're doing something like scheduling, whenever you're doing something like time management or something, having the ability to see things in a time-based manner, having the ability to put things in a line, put things in an order, and to execute based upon the time is also a skill which you acquire by this. So the basic form of timeline making is just this, like draw a straight line in the middle of it, write PR for present, at the end of the line. I mean, behind PR on the left hand side, write P for the past, and on the right hand side, you write F for the future. And this is your basic timeline. And this will help you understand. So you can make tables like, you can make verb form tables. So you can write like in the center, like for the PR, you can write is, at the P part, you can write was, and at the F part you can write will be, right? So these are the three forms of the verb, and you can tell automatically which forms are going to be placed where in the timeline. So just a helpful little trick for you guys. So moving on, make the present progressive tense by using am, is, or are with a verb that ends in an ing. All right, so look at the note. The ing form of a verb is called the present participle. You use the present participle with am, is, or are to make the present progressive tense. All right, am plus watching, present participle. All right, am watching then becomes present progressive tense. Okay, so watching is the present participle of watch, right? Watch, watching, watches, or watched, right? These are all the forms that you can make. Watch, watching, watches, will watch, had watched, will watch, and what else can you make? So like this is what I'm saying, like these are all forms. And like as a writer, even now I don't remember all the forms accordingly, but whenever I'm writing a sentence, it automatically comes through, because it doesn't make sense, like because you've read so much. Which is why I encourage all my class to read so much, is because the more you're exposed to language, the more examples you have in your head to draw from. All right, or I read this book which was written in this voice and it had a sentence like this and that sounded correct, so this sentence must also be correct because it sounds like that sentence. That sort of a thing. Okay, so watching is the present participle, listening is the present participle, playing is the present participle of all these sentences. So listen, watch, and play are our verbs. So if we change this into our example, so learn will be the basic form. We have changed it into learning to use the present participle. Now we'll add am learning to change it into the present progressive. So I am learning how to swim. So for example, this would be I am learning how to swim. I enjoy it very much. I think sometimes, so this is like, you can have like an entire dialogue, and you can have like, character monologues, and you can use it for like thoughts, and you can use it for essays and stuff like that in the present progressive tense. I am thinking about learning how to swim. I wonder how it would feel like to float in the water and be weightless and all of this stuff. Like this is what usually like basic essay writing stuff is based on. I am eating my lunch. I am watching television. She is reading book. Dad is baking a cake. My sister is listening to music. Uncle David is cleaning his car. So all these examples here. So learn, eat, watch, read, bake, listen, clean, park, sing, play, show, bring. All right. So I'm just reading out the base form of the verbs. Now, adding ing, these become learning, eating, watching, reading, baking, listening, cleaning, barking, singing, playing, showing, and bringing, right? And then when we add am learning, am eating, am watching, is reading, is baking, is listening, is cleaning, is barking, are singing, are playing, are showing, are bringing, we turn it into the present progressive tense. All right, I hope that is clear. If not, I know this is a lot of talking. I know this is very complicated for a lot of you guys to understand. So please make notes. For the love of Christ, make notes and ask me questions during the online class. The present progressive tense is also used to talk about things that are planned for the future. All right. So once again, present progressive tense, that are planned for the future. I am going to the library tomorrow. I am going to borrow a book that is on horses. All right. I am interested to learn more about horses. So these are all sentences that are conversations that are having that are taking place in the present, but the actions we're talking about are happening in the future or are planned to happen in the future, okay, or are going to happen in the future. But the conversation is happening right now. So I am going to the library tomorrow. My sister is giving me her bike when she gets a new one. We can't go to the movies tomorrow because my mom is working. We are having a barbecue on Sunday. All my friends are coming to my party next week. We are taking my cousin to the zoo later today. Okay. I hope that makes sense, people. If it doesn't, I'm repeating again. I'll keep repeating it a million times. If you don't understand something, please, for the love of Christ, ask me in class. Once again, just going to talk you guys a little bit through the exercises. So fill in the blanks spaces with the present progressive tense of the verbs in the parentheses. Parentheses, once again, means brackets. If somebody doesn't know that, I hope you know that now. Try to use contractions such as I am, she's, and they are whenever you can. All right. So always try to use contractions wherever you can. So the first example is we blank go to the zoo tomorrow. Now you have to use the present progressive tense of this verb. Now, so what would be the present progressive of go? Go, goes, going, right? So think of it like that. Okay. Fix, fixes, and then the next one help, helps, and then the next one watch, watches, and the next one. And but you have to use the correct forms, all right? Always add the correct forms of like whatever the contractions are giving above and everything else. Okay, just make sure like you're using the correct form. So please think about this properly. You're supposed to use the present progressive tense. All right. So the next one, complete the following sentences with either the simple present form of the verb or the present progressive form of the verb. Now you have to be very careful here. You have to think about what form of the verb fits the entire sentence. All right. So the teacher always dash give as the verb that has been given us to us interesting project work. The teacher always. Now which one are you going to use? The options are present progressive or simple present, so you have to choose which one it is, which one the sentence is, what is the time this conversation is taking place, what information are you trying to convey by using these forms of the verb. All right, so make sure of that. There are some other exercises after this as well. I hope you guys do all of them, and if you have any questions, once again, please ask me in class.